All right, I'm out here in the garage and I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of how I'm wrapping up the install on the Sea Dek for the bass boat that I'm doing here. So basically I've pulled all of the lids off, I cleaned them all up, took all of the extra carpet, all the glue off of it, cleaned the surfaces real well. Using the Sea Dek that is going to actually have a 3M adhesive backing, real easy to put it on the top of it, but I know I ran into a few issues and people were asking me questions about how I got through wrapping it around the edges. So I tried a few different methods, didn't like the first couple of them, so I'll just show you real quick here what I was able to do to get it to a point that I felt comfortable with it and liked the way that it looked. So basically what I did was I cut some of the longer strips and I took them in and actually made it so that it would go all the way around, and then as I stuck it to it, it's going to create a nice seamless edge that wraps around. What it ends up doing is leaving you a lip on the top. What you can see is as I put the top piece of it on, I'm cutting around the edge of that to clean it up, cutting some of the excess off the back here, and then it's good to go. So just a real quick way to do this without having to measure a whole lot of stuff up, because this is pretty easy to cut. Basically all I'm doing is running along the edge here and leaving some overlap. So hopefully you'll be able to see what this looks like here on camera, but I've just kind of laid it out flat so that it'll be a flat surface to cut against. And I'm lining this up, leaving an overlap, so there's probably a 1/4 of an inch or so, not having to measure up too much there. And then I'm going to end up cutting along that edge all the way across. And what I'll end up with is a long section that'll actually wrap around most of the top of this and bend over the edges. So I'll do that real quick and then show you what it looks like when I'm finished up. So like I said, just lining this up, making sure that I don't end up having it cut too short. So the biggest problem is if you end up cutting it too short, you have pieces of it that show exposed gaps. It doesn't quite look as nice. So just going to go along this with a razor blade, and I've changed these out several times, so I'm making sure that I've got almost every lid I've changed to a different razor blade so I can make sure that it's sharp enough, because I'm not really just kind of cutting along the concrete here. So simple as I can, and you can go through and measure this up, but this is a real quick way to do it. So I'm just cutting all along the outer edge of this, get to a stopping point, move it along and line it up. So I'm not really being too precise, other than making sure that I have enough extra of this that I can cut off later on. Okay, so you can see this stuff cuts really easily. And now all I'm going to do is just make sure I pull this apart. It still has the backing on it, so all of this just has an adhesive backing that you peel off. You don't have to worry about any extra glue or anything like that. You're just peeling this part of it off and you're applying it to the side. So one of the things that I've done to give myself a little bit of an extra precise way to attach this is I'm laying it on top of this strip. So I've got a full sheet of the Sea Dek. I'll move everything kind of out of the way here, but I'm going to lay this down so that that top edge, eventually when I cut the big flat part of it, this piece of it, I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to it as tight as I can across the top, but it's also going to make sure that it evens up with the bottom of this Sea Dek, which eventually will be the top of the lid. So you can see if I measure this up, this stuff bends really easily. So get this out of the way here, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to position this, line it up and make sure that it's flush against the Sea Dek that I've got against the floor. I'm just going to bend it around as I adhere it to it, and each time it's going to stick to it. It stretches a little bit, so it's pretty easy to actually work with. So if I look at this one and make sure that it's actually going to go, I have the back part of this where the hinges are going to be. I don't need it to actually wrap all the way around. I'm going to get it as close as I can, and then I'll put the hinges on it, and it'll look just as nice. So knowing that that's going to wrap all around all 4 of the corners, I'm just going to start with one little piece here, and I'm going to make sure that it's tight as it can be against the bottom, wrap it around the edge, move this here so you can actually see what I'm doing. So it's tight against the edge. I'm just peeling that adhesive backing off just a little ways at a time. and then tucking that back down there, making sure that it's adhering and as straight as it can be across the top. Because what you'll end up doing is cutting that bottom edge of it off with the razor blade anyways, and it'll be nice and straight. So as I work along the edge there, I'm going to make sure that it all adheres to it. I'm going to stretch it a little bit and then stretch it around the corner so you can see that creates a nice round bend or nice round edge along the corner. And making sure that I don't connect any of this or don't attach any of it to it without actually making sure that it's straight across the bottom or what will eventually be the top. Because once it does stick, it's on there pretty solid. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more corner here. I'm going to stretch it around the corner. Make sure I adhere it in the right place. Make sure that it lines up against the top. And I'm almost done. Like I said, this is the last of the lids that I have to do before actually doing the main part of the deck. Okay, so I've got all 4 edges covered with the Sea Dek, and I can cut a little strip if need be along there, but you can see those rounded edges. It's going to look a lot nicer once I put the top of it on there. So this piece of it is pretty simple. The biggest thing that you want to try and do is make sure that you've got it positioned out, so if you've got a lot of these, that you don't end up with a lot of excess. I'll just show you a real quick and easy way to be able to do this here. I'm just going to lay this right on top of it, and I'm just cutting it again with a brand new blade, but I'm just going to make sure that I've just got a little bit of extra on here, because I know that as you stretch it to it, you want to make sure that you've not left any gaps exposed. I'm just going to go right along the outer edge of this. And again, I'm going to leave a little bit of extra here so that I'm not cutting it so much to the point where it's going to be short. So it doesn't have to be completely exact when you make your first cut. I'm going to go ahead and just cut right along these, and I did leave the... So I cut right along the edge there. I did leave these 2 sides of it against edges that were already straight, so it makes it a little bit easier. So now that I've got that pulled apart, all I have to do is pull the backing off of this and attach it to the top, and then we're good to go. Okay, so I've cut the top of this to size, and basically now I just want to make sure that I'm lining it up and making sure that I actually have this going to actually go across the top of each side of this. I'm not going to be in a situation where I've turned it the wrong way or had anything that was lined up at an angle as I'm putting this across the top, because when you stretch this and you put it down, it's stuck on there really well. So you don't want to end up where you're trying to line it up and peeling it back. As soon as you peel it back, it's losing some of that adhesiveness and it's not going to last as long. So basically all I'm going to do is peel this back, put it across the top edges of there, and then work my way down. Now I've got this set up in place, all I'm going to do is start at the first edge, peeling that backing back a little bit. I'm just going to line this up so I can make sure that it's overlapping the corner just a little bit, and I'll be able to cut that excess off there. But you can see it's already stuck on there pretty well, so I can just kind of work my way along this, make sure there's no air bubbles, and then be completely finished here in just a few minutes. Now you can cut this, if it makes it easier, you can cut these into strips to make it peel off, but I've been finding that if I have it in one section and I'm able to actually do it kind of, don't try to hurry myself and try to do it slow enough, that it actually works out well, just keep it in one piece. So again, I'm going to make sure that I'm not overlapping too far so that I don't end up with gaps as I come across the top here. Go ahead and keep pulling this back, just making sure that I work out towards the edges so that I can work out any air bubbles, making sure that I don't end up having anything that's going to come apart on me at the end here. One good thing about this is it's very flexible. You know, it's definitely not like working with carpet, but it is flexible enough that you can work with it really well. Okay, so stretching this along just to make sure that it all lines up right. So far so good. If I get to this next corner here, then really I can do the rest of it pretty quick. So again, I didn't worry too much about cutting it exact, so I've got a little bit of excess, but you can see what I'm talking about with those rounded edges. Basically, I've got to a point now as I cut some of these off, it's going to cover up the top part of that you can see, so you really end up with a nice seamless edge across the top. One of the other things that I've kind of learned the hard way on a couple of these, and when I first did it, was not sitting down. I was trying to do this standing up. It's not that easy. I also started obviously with the side that has the hinge. You can do this the opposite way and start with the front side of it, so you kind of have to think about which compartment lid opens the right way, and know what's your front side going to be, what's your back side going to be, just to make sure that if you do end up having anything that's short, like right here, if it's short at all, the hinge on this is going to cover that up anyway, so it's not a big deal. So this is my front side of it. I'm going to make sure that that's where all the overhang actually goes to. So making sure that there's no air bubbles as I'm working along this. It's going to turn out actually probably, now that I've gotten 7 or 8 of these done, this will probably be my best one. It's a little bit easier the more that you work with it. Obviously I'm not a professional, I'm just trying to figure this out on the fly myself, but so far you work with it a little bit. You may want to order a little bit extra just to make sure that if you do mess up, it's not a huge deal. You don't have to wait for shipping, but if you order a little bit extra of this stuff and you make a mistake, you peel it back off and just start over. So hopefully you don't have to do that too many times. Okay, so it's got it nice and lined up across that edge. I definitely have some excess over the top part of it there, but I don't have any air bubbles. I cut the extra off of it with that box cutter. Get down to the last corner there. Okay. Nice. So basically, that's all it takes to be able to adhere this. So I'll just clean up the edges to make sure that that's all taking all the excess off of there. I'll attach the hinges, put it back on the boat, put the latch on the front of it, and I'm done. So thanks for checking in with me. Like I said, I've got a few different questions on some of this, and hopefully that at least answered some of the questions. If you got other ones, throw them out there. I'll try to put together another video if needed as I attach the rest of this to the front of the deck of the boat. But appreciate you tuning in.